Hey everyone, good evening, good morning. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. I'm Divya, one of the co-founders at DevAssure, and I have Santosh here with me as well, who's also a co-founder, and I have one of my founding members, Gayatri, as well on the call. So just a brief about DevAssure, right? I think most of you already know what DevAssure is, but just a brief about DevAssure. So we started DevAssure around 2 years back after quitting Microsoft, and we are three co-founders, Badri, Santosh, and me. And we have been quality engineers and developers most of our career, and our vision is to create a testing agent that helps engineers test autonomously. So we initially started with a no-code platform and have now moved on to a completely autonomous agent that directly tests your PR. So in this webinar, we wanted to do a deep dive session into how this works and then that will be followed by a live demo as well. So Santosh will be actually taking it forward from here. So please post any questions you may have in the chat, and we will have a separate session for Q&A towards the end. And as we also promised in the email, we do have a promo code for all the attendees. So details of which will be shared towards the end of the session as well. So over to you, Santosh.
Hi everyone. Uh, Most of you know about DevAssure, right? Most of you know what DevAssure do. But what is DevAssure O2? O2 is the new multi-agent AI system that we have built. And O2 takes care of your entire testing life cycle, right? It takes care of your testing right from as soon as you push your code. It understands your code changes. It creates test cases. It will create a testing plan, execute the test as well, and give the result. So it's an entire test life cycle agent. And also, we call it an invisible agent, right? Because there is no intervention needed, and the agent can take care of testing on its own with the predefined configurations, right? You just set the configurations, and the agent will take care of testing in your PR or in your release life. Before getting to know more about DevAssure, right? Why do we need agentic testing? We have been using multiple tools, multiple frameworks, even no-code tools or code frameworks that we use to automate and run the test cases, right? But now, why do we need an agentic testing framework? One of the key aspects of agentic testing is the agents know what to test, right? Now the testing frameworks we have will help you automate the test case, but it runs all the test cases for each of the changes, right? Even if I make a single line of code, I need to run all my hundreds or thousands of test cases for my CI pipeline to pass. That's not the case for the real testing, right? You just need to know which part needs to be tested, and the agent provides that context. The agent can understand the scope of testing, and it can test only the part that is needed. And the second part where it saves a lot of time is in setting up your framework and maintaining your scripts. So whenever there is a code change, you go back, update your automation scripts or create new scripts to test your new features, which requires a lot of time, right? And building complex automation framework also requires a lot of maintenance. So the agent has everything inbuilt, and it works based on your user flows in natural languages, right? So the maintenance is very less, and you can directly start consuming agentic frameworks like DevAssure without writing a single line of. And the final part is the context awareness. Even if your application is dynamic, if your application keeps changing, static scripts or tools will not be able to adapt to those UI changes. Whereas the agentic frameworks has the memory or context of your application and will be able to easily test your dynamic changes in the application. Now, coming to DevAssure, where all can you use DevAssure? So I'm splitting it into two broad points in your development lifecycle itself, right? First is your development phase. Whenever you're coding, you can invoke DevAssure from your vscode extension or other family of vscode IDEs, right? Be it Claude or Cursor or Anti-Gravity, which runs on vscode. You will be able to use DevAssure agent there. Or if you are not a part of those IDs, you can make use of the CLI as well. So let me quickly give a glimpse of it, right? So the DevAssure CLI is available as an NPM package. You can directly install it in your CLI and start using it with a few commands as well. And if you are on Claude Code, there is a Claude skill also available, which you can plug into Claude. So you can give, whenever you are using Claude Code for coding, you can write prompts to make Claude Code, use DevAssure also for testing. So the skill is also available as an open source skill and can be included, not just restricted for Claude Code, right? Any coding agent that can accept accept skills, you can include the skill. You can even use the skills package to include it in your coding agent. And the second part is your CI/CD pipeline. Once a development is done, you push your code, and you need a gatekeeping or test to run to make sure that your build is of good quality, right? That DevAssure is available as a marketplace plugin, which is available in GitHub, Circle, CI, and GitLab right now. And even for other systems, you'll be able to make use of the CLI, the NPM package, and execute the test in any of your CI systems. Now, let's look deeper into this, right? How does DevAssure work? So, we will, in this particular section, we will deep dive into each individual component of DevAssure, how internally it works, right? So, as I said earlier, it's a multi-agent system, right? We have multiple agents for, say, code scanning, for test case generation, execution, and for bug finding. All of these agents can work independently, and there is a master agent or the will sure to invoke the agent at the right phase of testing. So it can plan your entire action. The orchestrator acts as a communication between the multiple agents, and also it serves as a memory, right? Throughout the testing session. It preserves the memory of what each agent does so that it can reuse the memory for subsequent stages. Now, deep diving into the agent, the first part is the code scan agent, which understands your coding changes on a high level. So, say I have my code that is pushed. Say I want to test my commit ID, or I have raised the change request or a pull request. I want to test my pull request. The first processing is understanding your code changes, right? The processor goes through multiple iterations. It understands, scans through your code base, understands what are the changes that you have made, and also it constructs a context of your application, right? On a high level, what does your application do and how it serves your customers, right? It constructs a context based on your code itself. And in parallel, there is a UI reasoning also going on, which uses a specialized LLM, right, which is trained on browser data. So based on your UI component, the UI reasoning will understand how your components are structured. Say if there is a component that needs to be tested, the UI reasoning will construct the hierarchy, right, how to reach the component. Say you have modified a particular model or a particular UI component, right, which can be used in multiple screens. So the reasoning will construct the hierarchy on what are the user flows, what are the different screens that you need to go through to reach that particular component or a particular screen to test it. So the reasoning in your hierarchy. Reason constructed, there is a planner which will come up with the test scope. Now the agent knows what are the changes that you have done and what your application does and how your UI is structured. Based on that, the agent will come up with the test scope, or on a high level, what are the different sections of your application that needs to be tested, along with the different UI components also that needs to be tested. Right, it will come up with the test scope. So this defines how much testing that needs to be done, right? This is more or less like a first part of your test planning. Now, coming to the second agent, this is the test case generation agent, which reads both the code and also the scope that we have created from the first case. There are two processing that goes in parallel. The first one is understanding the user flows. These are detailed flows, right? From what we have created in the first flow from the test scope. This will read the UI components and create a detailed step-by-step flow on reaching the component. It will be detailed steps on what are the UI action that needs to be performed, like what are the actors or personas that need that to reach that particular flow, right? Say, for example, if you have multiple user personas, say there are admin users, there are viewer users, or there are different personas who are accessing the application. Depending on the component that we are testing, it will list down those actors or personas also needed for testing. And in parallel, there is a validation phase, validation generation phase that is also going on, which will identify different validations that you are going to do. So depending on your UI components, if there is a form, what are the different form validations that needs to be done? If there is an input field, what are the different possible inputs that you're going to enter and test that? Or if there is a UI components, there are buttons, what are the interaction and what are the validations that you're going to do on those buttons, right? So all the validations are being listed here along with the synthetic test data that can be used for testing. Now with this information, the end-to-end test cases are generated. Now you know what needs to be tested, what are the flows that are needed to reach that particular UI components, and what are the validations that need to be done. So with this information, the final end-to-end test cases are created. So these are natural language test cases along with the synthetic data that are needed, the detailed steps and validations that needs to be performed. So the next agent is the execution agent, which is one of the complex and most powerful part of the DevAssure agent itself, right? The execution agent can open multiple browsers. It opens your application in the browsers, and it has the end-to-end test cases created by the test generation agent. With these two, the agent tries to complete the entire test execution, right? To do the test execution, now we don't have any scripts or any locators or anything to automate your browser, right? So the agent is going to interact with the browser directly with by reasoning with the test cases that are created, right? So the first step is the reasoning process where the agent reads both your application UI and also the end-to-end test cases one by one, right? Say for a single test case, it will read the UI and the test case steps and identify what are the actions that needs to be done. So the steps can be natural language steps, right? Now we need to break it down to multiple actions to complete it. Say, for example, if the test says login, you need to do multiple steps to complete the login, right? You need to enter your credentials, you need to click on a button, or you need to enter an OTP. So there may be multiple steps involved there. So depending on your UI state and the step is broken down into multiple natural language actions. And for each action, the execution phase comes in here, right? The execution phase actually breaks it down, or it analyzes it further and translates into a command or a script that can be directly run on the browser. Say the browser, the action processor, it uses a LLM to understand what the action is, and it has context of your application UI as well, right? So there are multiple checks done before executing the action. The first check is whether this action requires a specific tool. So DevAssure internally has multiple tools that are implemented, which can be invoked as and when needed, right? The tools can be used to interact with the browser, or it can be used to do other data processing, or say if you want to read a file to validate something, there is a tool to read your files as well. Similarly, you can include your own set of tools. Say, some of the common tools are like there are database queries that you want to execute to do some validation or fetch the data from database to proceed your testing. Right. In those cases, you can write small scripts or code to for your custom actions and add them as tools in DevAssure. And the agent has context awareness of all the tools, right? What the tool does and how to invoke the tool. So if the action requires a tool, the tool will be invoked and the action will be completed. Or the next check is whether the action can be directly translated into an event that can be sent to the browser. If there is a if the action processor is able to identify the right element and the right event that can be passed to the browser, it will directly perform the action. Else, say if there are complex actions or the application is complicated, say if there are canvas applications where the direct interactions are not possible, there is a more powerful processor which comes in, which is a vision processor, which takes multiple screenshots of your application. Say it scrolls down, takes screenshots, and sends it to this a specified LLM, which can understand your UI with the images as well, right? Both images and your HTML DOM, and it breaks it down into events or interactions that can be sent to the browser. So it can go to a low level action as well, right? It can create actions with the help of coordinates, or it can directly send keyboard events to the browser so that it can complete the specific action. So it's a more powerful processor which will be invoked only in cases where there are complex actions. And once the actions are done, there is a UI state analyzer, which uses a specialized LLM, which has both the vision capabilities and also it's trained on browser data, so it can easily understand the browser state and the actions that needs to be done on the browser. So it understands the current state of the application, right? Even after the actions are performed, there might be some errors or the application might still be loading. In those cases, the analyzer will understand the current state of the application and decide whether further actions are needed or whether the test case is execution is completed. In case if there are further actions needed, it again goes back to the reasoning agent, which will identify the new actions that needs to be performed. It starts breaking down into further steps, and the entire loop goes through again. And once the execution is done, the execution agent can emit multiple logs, right? Multiple logs from the agent. Then there are browser logs like network logs, console logs, and there are screenshots also that are preserved by the execution agent. So these data can be used by the next agent to create the reports. The next one is the bug finder agent, which analyzes the entire execution data. Right now, your end-to-end test case is executed and by the execution agent, and it has given all the reports and results out of it. Now we need to analyze these results and identify the quality of the execution. Right. So from the execution data directly from the agent logs, the bug finder agent can identify functional bugs out of it. So if there are direct failures, say if the execution has stopped somewhere, or if there are failures or errors that are directly thrown in the UI, those can be directly captured and added as functional bugs. And in parallel, there is a UI analyzer going on, which will scan through the entire screenshots, right, so that it can identify usability bugs from your application screenshot. So this would include the usability bugs, UX inconsistencies. If there are any poor styling of the UI, all of those will be highlighted by the UI analyzer. So you get both usability bugs and functional bugs out of it. And along with the execution logs, the result consolidator will give you reports, detailed reports, so that you will be able to look at the quality of the test execution and also have multiple logs and playback, so it's easy for you to debug it as well. And there will be a high level score also emitted by the bug finder agent, so that you know the overall quality of your test execution. So if there are a number of tests that are executed, at the end you would know out of 100 what is the score of the of your entire test session. So this gives a fair idea of your quality metric of the particular feature or PR. So far we have theoretically seen how DevAssure works, right? Now I would like to show a demo of the agent in action. So I'm going to do the demo from the VS Code extension. This is a web application that I have opened, and this is a new application, right? Like I haven't started testing with DevAssure yet. So I have installed the DevAssure extension and I have logged in. Now, since it's a new project, I need to initialize my DevAssure project here. The basic information needed would be your application URL, which can be any pointing to any environment, right? You can change it later as well. And a small description of your application. And optionally, you can add multiple personas of your application. You can define these personas so that the agent can consider the behavior of these personas to test the application. So I'm going to add one more persona for viewer. So I have two personas for this application. Once I add all of these data, you can see a bunch of configuration files that are created. And if you look at your repository or your project folder, you will have a .devasure folder created. So this will be like the index folder of using DevAssure in your code repository. Once the .devasure folder is done, this will have the list of configurations and list of data that will be needed for testing the application. So for the demo, I will just switch to a different project where I have a bunch of data already added. So here, this is a fintech service application that I'm using, and I'm on a featured branch, right? I'm on a different featured branch where I have added a feature, and my application is already up and running. So to give a high-level context, so this is the part I'm going to test, right? This is a fintech service application, and this is the existing interface which is already present. I have made few UI changes here, and one of the major change here is when I click on one of the transaction rows, it opens as a drawer menu or a side menu, right? Earlier it used to open in a different window. Now I've added a new feature to show the data within the same screen in a different drawer menu. So now I'm going to test this particular feature branch, right, for these changes. So going back to VS Code. In my extension, I will click on test branch, which will let me choose what is my feature branch. So I'm choosing my feature branch, and I'm choosing the base branch against which I'm testing. This will invoke the agent. It will start executing it will start planning for the testing. It will scan what are the code changes that are done, and it will start executing the test. So if you look at it, it has listed the branch that it's going to test, and it starts planning for the testing. And the logs completely give the reasoning of the agent, right? What the agent is thinking and what is being done behind the scenes is completely shown in the log. So this is one of the major pages that I have updated. So it is going to scan that page and start from there, right? Keeping that as a base, it will scan the rest of the page and see what are the different files and folders it is going to scan and come up with a test scope. While this is getting created, let me walk through the different configurations that are there. So the first one is the agent instructions. This is more like giving your custom instructions to how the agent or the execution should behave, right? Say, for example, in my application, if the application is slow or if it is busy, there will be a warning message shown. In that case, I can reload and test my application. Right? So I'm giving the same instruction to the agent. So that, say, if there is a server busy warning, the test shouldn't fail. The agent should reload and retry, right? So I can add a simple instruction here, and the agent will start honoring these instructions while executing. So similarly, you can add multiple such instructions within the agent instruction code. Right? The app.yaml is a description about your application. You can give a detailed description so that the agent gets more context about your application. And optionally, you can add some rules too. So the agent will be able to infer the rules based on your code. But if there are any rules that are hidden from the code, right? Say if you have a separate backend repository or you're relying on a third-party service for certain conditions, you can list down those rules as well within this file. And here is the persona file. So the persona that we added are getting added to this file, and you can edit it at any point. So you can add a description, and optionally you can add multiple metadata like this. So here I have added age, gender, and region for each of the personas. You can add any any type of such data, right? So that there is no structure involved here, and you can. This is a free-form YAML format, so you can add any key value pair within this persona file. Yeah. Coming back to the execution, if you look at it, the agent has started two browsers. Since my preference is set to two, the agent has started two browsers and it has started executing the test one by one. So totally it has planned for 10 test cases and it started executing the test cases as well. And the preference file will let you control this too. So depending on the DevAssure plan you are in, you can have 2 to 8 or even more browsers to run in parallel so that the agent can control all of those browsers in parallel session. And once a test is executed, you will have a summary like this, right? Say for this completed test, there is a score 98. The test, all the functional validations are passed, right? But still there is a usability issue. So the score is a little less than 100. Similarly, the agent will keep adding all functional issues, or if there are any usability issues, will also be added for each of the test scenario that is being executed. Here there is a usability issue which says that the data pagination is not very obvious to the user. So any such UX inconsistencies or usability issues will be also flagged by the user. Yeah. Coming back to the configuration, one of the important files is the test data file where you add your URL, the data that is needed. So here in the execution, if you look at it, there are multiple credentials that are being used depending on the persona. All the credential data are being fetched from this test data file. So similar to the persona file, there is no formatting for this file. You can add any key value pair or add any nested structure for this test data. And you can add multiple environments like this too. So I have a default environment in case you want to extend the test execution to your UAT or testing environment. You can add the environment key and start adding data specific for that environment. Yeah. So here, this for one of the test case, the score is 25 because one of the main functional validation itself has failed. So the score is much lesser here. While this is running, probably I will show a sample report that I've executed earlier, which will give a full view, right? So this is also, I've opened my cursor ID for the same code base on a different branch. So this is also a similar execution, right? I have 14 test cases that needs to be run, and for each test case, you can see there are there is a score, and all the bugs are also being listed. And at the end, say once all the test cases are executed, there will be a consolidation of the reports, right? If there are bugs that are repeated across multiple sessions, all of those will be grouped together, and a single instance of the bug will be listed, and you will have an overall score of your entire test execution. So for this branch, my score is 58 because I have a critical functional failures happening within this test execution. And there's a full report available too. So the earlier during the walkthrough of the entire working, right, we saw that there are multiple data like network logs, console logs, and images being emitted by the execution agent. All of those are consolidated within this final report. So this will be a detailed report where you see all of the bugs here, and all of the scenarios or test cases that are executed are also listed. And say, for example, this is one test case where the score is much lesser. So if I want to review this, I can open this and look at the failures that are happening. So the failure clearly says that there is an NLP query that is run to list the transactions which are greater than 10,000, but it is listing all the transactions or transactions which are much lesser than the given value too. So somewhere the query is broken. So that is added as a functional bug, and that's why the score is also much lesser. So if I want to review this, right, I can expand the timeline and look at what are the steps the agent has done, and the playback will also be available. So I can review the actual execution video itself. So you can see that the query is entered, and but the particular feature is broken, so the results are returned wrong. So this is a clear bug, right? And you will have more data to debug too. So in case if you feel that say the query network has written a wrong data, you can look at the network logs and view them, or you can look at the console logs to see for any data that will help you debug. So the execution is still going on.
Yeah, Santosh, one of the questions that we have is like, is this something that can be run only against a commit or a branch, or is it something that where you can also run independent tests as well? Can you show that as well?
Sure, yeah. So let me stop this execution for now. Yeah. So the first workflow that we saw is purely an independent or autonomous execution, right? Where you have just the code changes and the agent takes control of what to test, and it does the planning and executes as well. In case you want to create your own test and run it, you can do that as well. See, I have so the test folder, under the test folder, you can keep adding multiple test cases. You can say add YAML files for the test case, and let me. So each file can contain multiple tests, and steps are the mandatory ones, right? All of these are optional metadata that you can add so that the reporting looks good, and it's easy for you to filter and execute the test too, right? And you can add steps for each of the test case. So these steps define what actions needs to be done, right? And it can be a high-level step too. So when I say login with valid credential of analyst, the agent is going to look at the UI, see how the data is, and what are the test data that you added, and it will make use of those to complete this particular task. So it will break down and execute. So if I want to run this particular file, I can directly hit on the run button. Or say if I want to filter and run, right? Say I want to run all the tests, but I want to run only the P0 test case. I can apply a filter here. I can say equal to P0. And I can hit run on the entire test folder, which will read all the tests that I've created and run only the P0 test case. And similarly, if you have test cases outside DevAssure system, say if you already have test cases maintained somewhere, or you have you're writing test cases in Google Sheets, you can download all of those test cases as CSV files, and you can make use of this option to upload your CSV and run it. So you can just pick your CSV file where each row will be treated as a test case and executed.
So this is more like you can either set it up against your PR, like whenever there's a code change, you can execute only the relevant test, or you can also have like your daily or nightly runs where you can run your regression or sanity as well. So both of these you can do, and then you can even execute specific tests that you want to do, or you can just write your own tests here as well. And similar to in general in test automation, we have all these repeated actions that are performed, like say login. If it's something which is repeated, it's a 3-step login or a 4-step login, and you want to add it as a separate action so that it can be reused across multiple test cases, you can do that as well, right? And then beyond that, even if you want to include specific libraries, if you want to call APIs, validate databases, you can do all of those things by just calling those libraries, or just like adding that piece of code to this entire folder itself, and so that you'll be able to then call that within your test case and execute it. Similar to how you do your regular test automation, you can do all of those things here, just that you don't have to write a single line of code. You don't have to write any script. You don't have to write any locators. You don't have to identify the elements. Even if your design changes, it will be able to adapt to the changes.
One of the major challenges is maintaining your scripts is writing the locators or identifying the right locator. Even if there is a small change, you need to go back, identify a new locator and do it right. That headache is no longer there because you are writing everything in natural language, and the agent will figure out which element to interact with. And even if the UI changes, the agent will break it down into multiple smaller steps and execute it. So now we have looked at how DevAssure tests your code in your machine, right? Now we want to do the same in the CI pipeline. So to do that, we have, as I said earlier, we have plugins available in GitHub and other marketplaces. So this is a typical example of your dev pipeline, right? So developer pushes the code, and often they developers write tests, right? We write test cases, we maintain the test cases. If there are any changes in the UI, we go back, update the Playwright tests or your test automation files. And once the pull request is raised, the static analysis and unit tests run, and the UI automation tests are going to run. And this is going to have an overhead, right? Because now I'm going to run all my thousands of tests, which is going to take a lot of time, and I need to spend a lot of time to create and maintain these tests as well. Now, by adding DevAssure test action here, right, you can eliminate this part where you can totally get away with writing the test case, and also you need not run all the test cases in your pipeline. Instead, what happens is DevAssure goes through the entire flow of scanning the code and running the test cases. And once the test execution is done, the same results that we have, which we saw earlier, are also archived, and you can set a check as well, right? Depending on the minimum score that you want, you can make the execution pass or fail, and eventually you can control your release stage as well, depending on the results that you are getting from the DevAssure execution. So this totally redefines your entire pipeline. It saves time in two areas, right? One is writing and maintaining a script. The second one is executing all your test cases. Instead of running thousands of tests, you're now going to run focused areas based on your code changes. Let me quickly show some samples, right? This is the DevAssure action that is available in GitHub Marketplace. You can directly include it in your GitHub pipeline. So if you already have a pipeline, you can just add a single step in your pipeline, which will invoke the DevAssure command. The same DevAssure execution that we done in the VS Code, the same similar execution will be done in GitHub action too. And there are a bunch of parameters also exposed so that you can control the way DevAssure works, right? Default minimum score is 75. If you feel that you need a better quality, you can set the minimum score accordingly. So that only if the execution meets this particular score, it will be marked as pass. Otherwise, your entire pipeline will be failed and it will be passed, so that it will prevent you releasing your code as well. And this is a sample execution from GitHub, GitHub, where I added PR, right? Once I raise the PR, the execution has triggered, the DevAssure test execution has triggered. And after the execution is complete, the summary section has the test results too. So there are totally 8 tests that are executed for this particular code change, and 3 has passed and 5 are failed. So I can look at the different bugs that are there in each of the test case. And if I open the complete logs, I will have the entire agent reasoning and the score of each of the scenario also. So for each test case, I can look at the score analysis, and there are any bugs, those are also listed here. And at the end, there will be a complete summary. So the number of scenarios run and what is the overall score. Since the score is much lesser than my threshold, so the job is marked as failure. And there will be an archive of your entire execution. So you just need to add the DevAssure action, right? The action internally takes care of all of these. It takes care of publishing the summary, it takes care of archiving your reports too, so that you can download it and view the same HTML report, the detailed report that we saw. Similarly, there are plugins available in GitLab CI/CD catalog too, where you can include. It's a similar process, right? You include a single step in your CI job and multiple other actions that you can use to control the execution. And there is a orb available in Circle CI repository too. So you can include the DevAssure orb in your, if you're using Circle CI for CI/CD, you can make use of the existing orb. For any other system, you can directly use the DevAssure command to the npm package. You can make use of this to invoke DevAssure. So you may be writing a few commands to do it, but for any CI system, it will be easy to refer these documents and add your DevAssure pipeline. And for systems like GitLab and Circle CI, there are separate spaces to archive your tests. So you can DevAssure takes care of putting the test under these archives, so that when you repeatedly run the test, the historic view and everything will be taken care by the GitLab or Circle CI's internal mechanism itself. So here under the test tab of Circle CI, the tests are still added here.
Madhav.
Yeah, the report that we saw, right? So you have an artifact available. You can download this artifact. Once you open the artifact, you will have a report something like this. Let me open the sample report. Right? So you will have a report like this, where you can open the scenario and you will see what are the steps that are done. So on a natural language, you will see the steps here, and you can expand the timeline and look at the detailed execution. Evaluation will have this. The evaluation will say what it is expecting, and in case if something fails or passes, it will be the marked here. But this evaluation will have the entire thing of what it has done, what it's expecting, and what is the next step it is planning to do. So this is like the entire reasoning of the agent itself, right? Will be available here. So this entire, we recommend to use this entire report itself, right? What is being tested, what are the different bugs that you're identified. So you can directly print this in PDF format. That's how most of the customers are using it, right? You can directly print this and use it. Or we are working on JUnit reports as well, right? So if you go, let me quickly go here. Right? So you will have the JUnit standard format as well, right? So on top of it, if you want any there are multiple tools which construct the dashboards, right? You can make use of this JUnit report, which has all of these logs, all of these data available too, so that you can easily customize your report. So any format that you want to use, you can use this standard JUnit XML as well.
Sure. So yeah, thank you, Santosh. And yeah, we do have like a few questions that we need to answer as well. And I think we'll be running out of time soon. So I'm just going to quickly go through this, right? See, one of the things that, when we, it's been like almost like 1 to 1.5 months since we launched the product. We did a soft launch. We exposed it to like specific set of customers, and they gave us a lot of feedback, and a lot of the customers started using it as well, right? But predominantly when we go for these demos, or when I'm talking at events and all that, right, predominantly I get a bunch of questions around, okay, how is this any different from Playwright or Selenium, or why is it any different, or because Playwright Selenium is more reliable because the scripts are deterministic, which means you have complete control in terms of how you want the test to execute. Then if you're giving the agent a complete access, then they ask questions in terms of, okay, when I'm doing that, how do I trust the agent to actually do a very good job? So we just thought that we need to have 2 slides which are, dedicated to, just compare, why it is much better than that and why we don't, generate scripts. That was also one of the questions which was asked right now. So why don't we generate scripts? Why are we just doing it completely autonomously, right? So if you look at it, right, one of the things that, one of the things with Playwright or Selenium is that what you already know is you need selectors, you need all your IDs, you need your XPaths and everything, right? You need to add all of those things to be able to execute your tests. You can use coding agents to be able to write your Playwright scripts or write your Selenium scripts, but beyond that, you still have to maintain that. So we wanted to remove that completely, right? Because that maintenance, what we've realized, like Santosh and me, we've developed like a lot of frameworks in our previous organizations. And one thing that we always do is like after 1,000 test cases that we've actually automated, we go back and comment out some of the test cases just because they're flaky or just because some UI changed somewhere and we have to go back and update it. We used to have sprints dedicated to test automation development itself, right? So that is a huge overhead today. And that is the reason why automation is always 2 sprints behind actual development. So we wanted to see how testing can be part of your current development lifecycle itself or your current sprint itself. And that's the reason why we've decided to go with scriptless so that you don't have the overhead of maintaining those scripts itself. The next part is in terms of adaptation, right? So there are self-healing. There is like, there are tools which actually, even we did it with our no-code platform where we have the self-healing part as well, right? But that also comes with its own set of limitations. Like if the UI is drastically changed, it's not going to be able to self-heal on its own. It's not going to go back and update your test cases. So that's where, DevAssure O2 is like a much better version of that, where it's not actual self-healing, but it's actually just, self-adapting to the changes that have been made. And then if you're using the PR agent directly on your commit, it goes ahead and updates your existing tests as well to the changes that are made. So all of that, in terms of your stale test cases or, missed to update certain test cases, all of that is completely eliminated as well, right? And the other thing that we've done like really well with the O2 agent is that, we've added one layer of intuitiveness, right? So every QA engineer has that layer of intuitiveness, right? So we've tried as much to add that layer of intuitiveness as well, so that all of these tests that are getting executed autonomously will be highly reliable as well, right? And the other part is definitely in terms of like dynamic applications. We see a lot of dynamic applications. We see a lot of co-pilot applications that are coming up as well, right? Where you have like, every, response to a certain, like take a chatbot, for instance, right? You ask a question, your response is actually not tied to that question. You need to validate if that response is contextually right to that specific question, right? All of this, you'll not be able to do it with a deterministic set of scripts. So the agent, the O2 agent kind of, helps with all of these things. And finally, the reporting, like if you've seen it, all of the reports that you have are completely tied to the business use case itself. It's not like, certain element was not found or it was not clickable or, this, it was not, it just, the page didn't just load within like say 150 milliseconds. There's no hard coding of any of the, the wait for load and all of those things, right? All of those hassles that come with writing any of these deterministic scripts are completely eliminated. Santosh, next slide, please. Yeah. So this is also another question that, I get asked predominantly, right? Like, okay, why can't I just use Claude Code? Especially because Claude has the ability to connect to the MCP servers, especially with the browser, it's able to execute it. So why not do that, right? So earlier when Santosh was actually showing the entire architecture, the reason why we started with that is to understand, is for everyone to understand, how DevAssure is like completely different from the rest of the agents which are available, right? Because this is purely a testing agent, right? Claude is brilliant, right? We ourselves I personally use Claude a lot to actually do coding. But for testing, I don't use Claude, right? Because it's a general purpose agent. What we've built with DevAssure O2 is very, very specific for testing. And testing, like I mentioned, like I always keep saying, right, reliability is a very, very key aspect of testing itself, right? And without reliability, because you're basically trusting the agent to do your job so that you can focus on something else, right? So which means you need to be able to trust the agent that it's going to be 100% reliable. So that is something that we've built into O2 really well. And the other part is also in terms of how well defined the workflows are. Right, if you look at it, right, in terms of maintenance and everything, right, you don't have to write a single prompt. So there's no prompt engineering involved here. All that you have to do is include a bunch of commands, or if you're using CI/CD, if you're using the GitHub Marketplace or the GitLab, or even Circle CI, for instance, right? All of those things, you just have to include the necessary libraries and everything, it takes care of the rest. We do have like a Claude skill also available for DevAssure, and you just do /DevAssure and ask it to do a bunch of things. It does everything on its own. So, within Claude itself, it's still DevAssure can work as well, right? Even outside of Claude, you can make it work within your different IDs. You can make it work wherever you feel comfortable working. You can make it work there. And the setup time is nearly like less than 5 minutes. Like Santosh just did the setup right on the call itself, right? And then the speed and accuracy is something that we've taken care of really well for the O2 agent, especially in terms of, from a testing mindset, right? What do testers think? How do testers think? And like I'm repeatedly saying, right, all of most of the members within DevAssure, we come from deep quality engineering backgrounds, and we've put in all of that into how we've built O2. Right, we've put in that experience, we've put in that layer of test data training that we've actually done. All of that is actually put into O2, and that's why it's a lot more powerful in terms of testing. And any code change that you do using Cursor or Claude or any other tool for that matter, it will be able to test it out, and it will also be able to execute your tests as well. Right. So I do have like a bunch of questions here. I'm just taking a look at the questions again. Yeah, so there is one question on in terms of the pricing itself. So pricing is very transparent on the website in terms of the token consumption for the PR agent itself. How we actually charge is like we allocate a set of credits in terms of like dollars. So you get like, say if you're on the team plan, you get like $300 worth of credits every month, and for the $300 worth of credits, you'll be able to execute around 2,000 test cases. And when you use the PR agent for a medium-sized PR, the consumption is around $5 to $8, including the the test case detection, and then updating the test cases, and then executing the test cases and the report analysis as well, right? But if you're independently executing the test cases, it depends on the size of your test case. It depends on the kind of thinking that you have to do. Like for instance, right, if your test cases are fairly detailed, the agent thinks less and it executes what you've mentioned. But if there is some level of ambiguity, or if there is some thinking that the agent should also do on its end, right, then it becomes a little more complicated for the agent, and it tries multiple things to make sure that it's able to test out the application properly. So in that case, it's going to consume more credits, right? And there's another question. I think the script generation part I've already answered. And what are the LLM models that are being used? So that is something that we are not very transparent about. We use multiple models. We use the models which are available, like, we do use like some of the Anthropic models as well. We do use OpenAI. We use multiple models. We use our own in-house model as well. And all of these are designed in a specific way. Like Santosh mentioned earlier, there are different agents which actually perform different actions. Each of those agents use different one or more models, depending on, we spent a lot of time in terms of research and R&D, in terms of R&D, right, just to understand, which models work better in which use cases. And we've put everything together. Multiple models function together. O2 is kind of like your super agent, and it manages multiple agents through the entire life cycle of the testing itself, right? So based on all of these things, we have used different LLMs, and that's the reason why O2 is lot more reliable, 100% reliable, in fact. And we also have been able to achieve like a very good test coverage as well, around 90% for all of the code changes which are being made. Okay, migration, right? There's another question in terms of, okay, if I have tests in Playwright, will I be able to migrate them to DevAssure? Right now, it's not possible directly within DevAssure, but what you can do is you can use a tool like you can use an agent like Claude, where you can actually ask it to modify it to that YAML specific format, and it will be able to read all of the scripts, which if you've written your Playwright scripts in TypeScript, you'll be able to modify them as well. Yeah. So any other questions that come up, we can always, like we always do that, we do respond to those questions as well later via email. So we'll be happy to do that as well. Yeah. So one of the things that we had, ROI is very important, right? So with the customers who have started to try out the agent, we've seen that, they've told us that they're able to save around 128 hours in the first month that they started trying itself. And obviously zero test maintenance. There's absolutely no test case maintenance at all, especially if you're using the PR agent, because it goes ahead, edits and adds the test cases on its own. 100% reliable test runs, like I've been repeatedly saying it, and then you have like 2x faster releases. So that is the most important thing, right? Because with the coding agents, you're able to code a lot more faster. So you need a testing agent which helps you test a lot more faster. And you need to, whether you're a developer or a tester, you need to focus on other aspects of testing as well. So why not leave your functional and usable testing to DevAssure's O2 so that you can focus on other things? Yeah. Next slide, Santosh. Right. I think repeatedly we've covered this, so I'm going to skip this part, right? In very detail, I think in like previous 2 slides I've already covered, because we are going to be running out of time as well. So I just want to make sure that we have ample time to cover the most important part, right? In terms of the special discount. So this is what is very important. So we wanted to have more usage on the platform, and so what we've decided to do is we are going to be providing. So once you start sign up, right? So what you have to do is very simple, right? Go to app.devassure.io, sign up for the agent, and then just drop us an email at support@devassure.io. I repeat, support@devassure.io, so that we will actually add those credits for you, so that for 1 month it's going to be free subscription for you, and then you can actually set it up as part of your CI/CD pipelines. You can experiment with the agent a lot, and then you can decide to go in for the paid subscription from month 2 onwards. So with this, what we encourage you to do is come on a call with us. So we'll set up your CI/CD pipeline, let it just keep running, right? So that you'll be able to see the complete functioning of the agent itself, right? You'll be able to understand how the agent functions. You'll be able to understand the kind of bugs it's able to identify as well. So we actually have like a complete one-on-one session. So we do have, so there's a schedule demo link in the website as well. Just click on it, schedule a demo with us, and then we'll actually help you set it up then and there. It's just going to be a 30-minute demo session, not much of your time. So we'll help you set it up then and there, and then we'll add the credits as well, so that you can, and then for 1 month we'll not disturb you. Just use it to the maximum and then get back to us on month 2. So any feedback that you have, right, in terms of the agent, just try it out, even to provide feedback as well, right? If you have like any feedback, you feel like for certain apps you don't see the kind of functioning that you actually see with Playwright or any other tool for that matter, just let us know, and we'll actually make sure that it actually adheres to your application as well. So yeah, it's 10 p.m. So I'm just going to I think it's time to wrap up the session. But please do post your questions. Just continue to post your questions. You can post your questions to support@devassure as well, and we will respond with our answers. Like I mentioned, schedule demo link is available on the website. Just go ahead and schedule your demo, and I will be happy to explain the entire tool again and see how it works for your application as well, which is the most important thing. So thank you everyone. I know it's late for a lot of you today, right? So thank you so much for taking the time to join us today.